Hello, guys. Welcome back to Shane's Shelf. I am Shanen. I guess I'll do the bit. There's the shelf, and then yeah, welcome back to another episode. I talked to my wife last time and read her favorite book, which is sitting up there, first book on the shelf, and it was great. And I had a pretty similar, like, good experience reading this next book with this next guest. And the next guest is my brother. So I actually have three brothers, though. This is my twin brother. His name is Liam. You'll see his last name too, Liam Hall. We actually have different last names. I'm not going to explain that for now, but you can ask me in the comments if you really want to know. And Liam is my twin brother. So, like, I would say my wife is probably, the most important person in my life since we've been married, which has been over 6 years now, 6.5 years pretty much. And leading up to that, pretty much my best friend growing up and everything was my twin brother. I was abysmally shy growing up because I didn't have to talk to anybody because I could always talk to Liam, which may or may not have been a good thing. But either way, he's probably my most, I would maybe intellectually inclined of my brothers. Not that my other brothers are dumb by any means, but him and I probably read the most. I think Liam, I would definitely say, probably reads the most of all of us. He doesn't exactly read the same stuff that I do, but sometimes we, read the same book here or there, whatever. Like I read some Gene Wolfe with him last year, which was the first Gene Wolfe I ever read, and I really enjoyed it. And of course, I've read Lord of the Rings. He's probably read it 10 times, and it's great. But I don't worship it like he does. I'm pretty sure he has an altar in his house to it, and to Tolkien, whatever. But either way, I think he's a pretty cool guy. We live across the country from each other, so he's joining me virtually, and here he is. Maybe you can see the family resemblance. Yeah, but we've been yabbering for a little bit before actually recording this video. But we can get into the book that we did read, and I asked Liam, of course, and he chose the book. I was a little surprised, to be perfectly honest, when you said this. I was like, what? But it is The Castle in the Attic. Yeah, I have a physical copy. I don't think Liam does right now, but
I don't. No, I read it
yeah.
digitally. I think I found it on like archive.org or something. I don't remember.
Mm.
I have a physical copy, but it's in storage in Texas, I believe. It's not the same cover. It's like the cover. It's like the very similar design, but it's like a little boy. I think he's wearing like a blue shirt, like looking down at the castle, and like the gate is open, the drawbridge is down, and there's like a magical world coming out of that, essentially. Or
Yeah,
like that.
I think that's the one that you put on the thumbnail for your video.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Liam does like his
Update.
weekly updates or whatever. And so he just read the book and mentioned it there. But yeah, I actually, when you buy like books used on Amazon and it like always shows you one cover and then I get it and it's never the cover that I actually saw.
Right.
Because, it's just whatever edition they decide to send me. I don't really care until sometimes it's like, oh, that's a nice, like newer, modern edition.
No.
They sent me like one from the 80s and all the pages are super yellow. And I'm like, oh, thanks. But
that's why I try not to buy used from Amazon unless it's just some academic text, and I really don't care what it looks like.
Yeah, that's fair. But the book was published in 1985. It was written by Elizabeth Winthrop, I guess.
Yeah.
Very elementary, pretty simple, pretty straightforward, but not bad by any means, I would say.
I mean, I enjoyed it. I mean, I reread it. Do you have like you don't do like set of questions for this? Anyways, we just talk. Okay, cool. The reason I chose this one actually because it's not my favorite book ever in many ways, right? Like it's not the most memorable, and right, it's not the most like. I don't know. The impact is hard to gauge on this one for me, but the reason I chose it is pretty much because it's the earliest novel I remember reading. Right. Like I remember reading earlier chapter books, like Magic Treehouse in particular, whatever those books are, The Horrible Harry, I think, or something like that.
Sounds right.
Which are probably even younger. I probably read those when I was 7 or something. I don't know. Right. And I remember reading this when I was 9 in 4th grade, and my teacher, Mrs. Workman, got a book for everyone for like Christmas or something. I remember just coming to class one day and literally everyone had a brand new book sitting on their desk. right? And Mrs. Workman apparently knew what I liked because I found the Castle in the Attic on my desk. And I actually remembered a good amount of. There's not a lot to remember. It's a pretty straightforward book. But I could definitely say that since it's the first book I remember reading, it was pretty impactful in that sense, right? And like novel, I remember reading, right? And I mean, it definitely has some like fantasy and like medieval stuff in it, um, that I still really like today, right? So I mean, that's why I was like, we'll go with this one, right? Because like it's pretty much the oldest thing I can think of. And because I mean, maybe if I hadn't read that, maybe I would have read like The Hobbit, or even
Yeah.
Aragon, or The Lord of the Rings, or something like that. And so while I'm much more of a bigger fan of, say, like The Lord of the Rings, and I don't quite have an altar, there is a separate shelf for just Tolkien stuff. I think there's two shelves actually, several copies of certain books. So, but yeah, I don't know. This one seemed like the one to go with.
That's fair. I mean, first off, you need to write a letter to Mrs. Workman, and thank her, I suppose. Who says like teachers aren't impactful on their students?
Right.
But I don't remember my teachers ever doing that for me. I didn't have Mrs. Workman, so maybe I got gypped.
Yeah.
But either way, it's funny that you say that. I'm like, I remember reading like the Magic Tree Houses growing up and stuff like that, and thinking they were cool. Like I liked the adventure aspect and like the fantastic aspects of it, but I don't know if it was like super impactful for like what I would read and how I would read the rest of my life, pretty much. Like the first book that comes to mind that was like a read that I remember just thoroughly enjoying was probably The Adventures of Huck Finn, and I was probably 9 or 10. Um, and so I probably didn't even understand half of it.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that book has lots of layers, and I've read it since then, and I still really like it. And that's quite in a different vein than The Castle in the Attic. But The Castle in the Attic is, I think, a great introductory fantasy book, actually. Um, Way easier to digest than The Hobbit. And
Yeah.
so perhaps a perfect like first fantasy book for the kiddos or something. You've probably
Yeah. I
already
think
read them Lord of the Rings, and
no.
they can speak Sindarin or whatever. I
I've
don't know.
read a version of a kid's version of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight to them.
Ah,
Um, but and some of Beowulf. But the Hobbit is a little bit harder. I think The Hobbit, if I read it out loud to them, would be decently accessible. I think. I think The Hobbit's fun. The nice thing about the Castle in the Attic is it's shorter, and
yeah,
it's
that's
just
true.
easier to digest, right? I mean, like it's rather straightforward. Okay, there's not a lot to even know, right? Because first off, what the hell is a Hobbit? I mean, like like there's like a lot of stuff going on in the Hobbit that is fantastic, right? And not really like our world, right? Even though Bilbo kind of acts just like a normal bourgeoisie middle class English guy, or something like that
Yeah,
from probably the 1930s more accurately than today. But um, the Castle in the Attic is really vaguely contemporary, right? I mean, like I'm sure it takes place technically in like the 80s, but
yeah,
there's
probably more
not
than
really
that.
a lot dating it, like really
No.
much at all. Um, like the main character's name was William, which maybe I connected to. I don't know. And he's in gymnastics, which I didn't remember at all actually.
Yeah,
Uh, when I from when I first read it. But it's like super straightforward, right? It's just like okay, essentially it's about getting over someone leaving, essentially, and going on a quest. Now that's pretty much it, right? So like, uh, I don't know.
yeah,
I think it does it well though.
yeah. In fact, the build up like takes up like more pages than the quest itself.
Yeah,
And so it kind of is perhaps feels mostly just like a dealing with loss in some regards. Not like she
yeah,
died, but it's pretty much the nanny who's pretty much like a mother to him because his parents are kind of absent is
right,
leaving. And so it's really hard for a young boy, with a young mind and stuff like that to deal with it. And so it's kind of got like more of an adult theme, I guess, than you might guess. The quest is super straightforward. There's some sort of magic, of course, and just like the fact that how did he get from his attic to all of a sudden in the woods, like in this other realm, like that,
Yeah.
it literally just happens, And so it's very, very simple, very straightforward, but not bad at all, I would say. It's just, I don't know. It's, like maybe because like you remember old like folk tales and stuff like that, even when like, or like Hans Christian Andersen's like tales and stuff like that. Lots of this stuff, or Grimm's fairy tales, I'm sure you know that. They're like for kids half the time, and like we read them today, and they're like, wow, this is dark. But
Yeah.
it's kind of like that in some regards, where like this is a more of a heavy topic, not as dark as lots of that stuff. I mean, it was written in the 80s,
Right.
not the freaking 1680s or whatever. But it's like it's still a heavier theme than you might think lots of kids are ready for it. But I don't think so. I think kids can understand a lot more than lots of people give them credit for. And I have read my kids The Hobbit, but now I think I should read them this. Probably be easier because I think they enjoyed The Hobbit because it was. But that might have just been, oh, Daddy's reading us a story, which is just automatically cool. But and they'll get The Hobbit. Like I'm sure I'll read The Hobbit with them again at some point. But when they can understand it a bit better, but still.
Yeah, I think that the topic of loss is a good one. I mean, William is 10 in the story, I believe, and it's interesting actually because if I remember correctly, it starts out the story and it describes him as, well, I don't think the book doesn't describe him as actually, who is the narrator? It's him, right? William's the narrator, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think. And so people describe him in dialogue as like emotional, kind of, or as gentle. I think that's the word they normally use, right? Because he cries about things, or whatever, right? And that's like the book doesn't say, "Wow, that's bad," right? There's no one bullying him saying, "Wow, what a baby," or anything like that.
Sissy,
yeah, right. And so like it's just there, right?
Because he didn't have any brothers,
and it doesn't hurt him, right? It does not hurt him at all to be emotional or to be gentle, as it is put, right? Even though William, he does make mistakes, right? The fact that he shrinks his nanny so
Spoilers.
She doesn't leave. That's not a very good thing, right? You know what I mean? Like, and made obvious that it's not a good thing, So like, that pretty much in his inability to cope with loss, he makes a mistake, essentially. And so that's in fact that's what the whole quest is for, right?
Yeah.
He's got to fix his mistake. He's got to find the remedy, right? He's got to return, essentially, right? And so I think it works really sneaking well, like from a mythopoeic sense, you know what I mean? Or like just, because it's just the personal story of William dealing with one thing, essentially, right? And I mean, and it has like some nice fairy tale elements. There's this nice shining knight, like, and there's a cool castle, which I have used as a D&D map now. But it's just, and like there's like the weird like enchantments, and the dragon, right? I mean, like it's got some fun stuff in it, but I think at its core actually it reads to me maybe a bit more on the nose and definitely a different style, but it reads to me kind of like a fairy tale or even some of like medieval romance, right? That here's what's going on, here's at the beginning, something happens, quest to solve it, back to something good, the same normally, or something maybe a little better at the end, right? So hopefully better, right? I mean, because at the end, his nanny does leave still, right? But like, he's better now, in a sense. I actually found out there's a sequel to this, but I have not read that.
Yeah.
So
I don't know if I'm ever gonna read it, but
I don't know if I'll read it either. Maybe.
Well, if you do, let me know how it is. But yeah, he definitely, like, he grows from the experience, and although like the knight is cool, Sir Simon, the Silver Knight, like he's obviously a side character. William is the main character.
Oh yeah.
Like it focuses on him throughout and his growth. I mean, like, yeah, she still leaves at the end, but he has grown. He's a bit more mature and wiser, despite being 10 years old. And I was honestly surprised how little the Silver Knight was in it. Like even when they started their adventure, he's gone pretty quick. I was like,
Yeah.
oh.
Yeah, I don't
But
remember that.
anyway,
I don't remember much about the book, to be honest. Like I remember it now, right? And he is not in it actually a ton. In it just enough for it to be cool, right? I mean, but like he really doesn't detract from William's quest at all. I mean, like because all I remembered was there's a castle. I don't know why the castle is there. I didn't remember it was a gift, right? And I just know that there's a knight in this castle, and that somehow he goes on a quest in some land, and he's somehow in the castle, right? So presumably shrunk, but I don't really recall that either, right? And I don't remember it not making sense, right? So I mean, some of it's really not explained all that much.
yeah.
So there are some elements of like other art in reference here. Right? I mean, like Janice is a character that is referenced a good number of times. Saturn, I think, as well. He doesn't devour his children here, but this shame. No, and no, and but like there's even like, I think the one point is when he's facing the dragon, he's giving himself courage by reciting the battle hymn of the Republic. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, cool. So I
He's a
probably didn't even know what
gushing
that was.
American patriot. Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah. I agree. It was and like with his error, it kind of took him a little bit of time to convince himself that he knew it was wrong, but you could tell he knew it was wrong like the
Yeah.
moment he did it.
Yeah, he was acting like kind of sketched out about it, all shady and stuff.
Yeah. But and the quest is super straightforward. I mean, almost cliche, right? But
Oh yeah.
it was still really nice. I think just going through the woods. Well, first off, he had to get there, right? He had to condescend and shrink himself. Willingly going.
Right,
to
he
that.
shrinks himself. Right, it's his choice.
Yeah.
Right, so
and then the woods, and then going like helping a guy. It's like textbook, hero's journey, like trial that I may have caused a problem, but going through some spooky woods, helping a random poor peasant, and then defeating the dragon, and then defeating the wizard, like all in like every page he's completing something pretty much because it's really quick.
Yeah.
But it's all it
doesn't feel rushed, I don't think.
No, it doesn't feel rushed, but it is a kid's story.
I was just looking through my highlights because for some reason my notes as a whole aren't working, so I was just scrolling through the book again. When he gets to the dragon, it describes it as endlessly turning on himself so that the occasional burst of flame from his mouth barely miss his tail. And I'm like, wow, a worm or Boris reference. No way I caught that when I was a kid, right? I'm like, I wasn't expecting that when I was reading it now, and I was like, why? It's like needless. I mean, just a dragon turning in circles, so, right? You know what I mean? Like, but still interesting. Let me go through real quick and see if I can find anything else. But, I mean, overall, like I said, it's just a book that I feel like it led to a lot of other stuff. And I think I mentioned this in my weekly update, actually, that at the time, I read this. So in 4th grade, I remember we played a lot with these like Black Knights, like little action figure things that are really dinky, and they could you could swing their arm like this sort of.
Yeah, from the castle with the drawbridge, and like you could drop a boulder on them.
It was so fun. But anyways,
Stephanie got me one for like my birthday, like last year or whatever, but it's in storage.
Oh darn! Yeah, I think I saw one at a store around here once for like in the kids section. But
I can't believe I just admitted that my wife got me a gift that was a children's toy.
Not just like just a castle and knights, like the dinkiest castle and knights ever, right? I mean, like they're obviously children's toys, right? Like, but anyways, I remember playing with those a lot. Watching Lord of the Rings and stuff, and playing with those and thinking that stuff was cool. I also remember, but it was also at the very beginning of 4th grade. We went on vacation, and that's where I first got my figurines. I don't know if you remember them. Right, and there's like one of them's holding like a shield and like a war like axe or whatever, a war hammer I think in his hand, and another one has like a great axe. Right, and there's a wizard. Right, I have these like figurines. I think they're in storage in Texas, or else I definitely put them on my bookshelf. Right, and they're knights mostly. Right, and they're so cool. They look so cool. They're not action figures; they're just figurines. Right. But they're I don't know. That just stuck with me. And I think in that sense, like, is very memorable, right? I mean, we mentioned Magic Treehouse earlier, and I mean, I don't remember a ton from my childhood. I mean, there's bits and pieces, and I remember reading Magic Treehouse, but I couldn't tell you anything about a single one of those books. I couldn't tell you the name of them or anything, pretty much, right? Besides the fact that there's a Magic Treehouse and they go on adventures, right? And that's pretty much it. But I read those when I was pretty young, right? And so 9 when reading Castle in the Attic. Uh, I mean, again, it is my favorite in a sense because it led to pretty much everything else that I read. Right. Without that, maybe I would have read some of the other stuff still. You know what I mean? But like, I mean, the fact that I still remembered the Castle in the Attic rather well, all things considered, after reading it almost 20 years ago, is I think a testament to its quality. I did find another highlight in here actually. I think this one's a funny one. I highlighted it because I thought it was like funny moralizing in the middle of the book. It says, "William, when you do gymnastics, you have to be honest about everything you do in the other parts of your life too. Otherwise, your body will deceive you, and you won't be able to turn the tricks." And I'm just like, okay, well, I get being honest, right? And it's kind of like you mentioned earlier. William is like obviously knows he did a wrong thing, right? And so it's just this guilt essentially. But like, I just thought it was kind of funny that it was applied to gymnastics, essentially. Like,
Right.
like, there is one another thing I like that's actually right before that. That when he gets like this really short training sequence to be a squire to the Silver Knight. Sir Simon, I think, is his actual name, right? Mm-hmm. And he says the rules of conduct that we must respect, be we knight, squire, or page, right? So Sir Simon's pretty much saying, this is what my father told me to act like when I became a knight. And he says, be compassionate to the needy, neither squander wealth nor hoard it, never lose your sense of shame. If questions are asked of you, answer them frankly, but do not ask too many yourself. Be manly and of good cheer, never kill a foe who is begging for mercy. And then there's another one that Lady Eleanor adds, which is be ever loyal in love. And I was just like, okay, this reads kind of like some knightly romance thing. It's
Mm-hmm.
cheesy and but like it was still nice. Like I read it, I was like, oh, that's inspiring, right? And so like,
tear in my eye.
yeah, right. Which is maybe why I liked it, right? Because again, I think in a lot of ways, probably when I was first reading it, because even a little now, I could just see myself when I was 9 reading this and connecting with William. Besides the fact that we have a similar name, I'm a crybaby, right? And apparently William is too. And right, but William gets these, even though he's got these problems, they're like, oh, you're gentle or whatever, right? And they'll be like, oh, you're courageous, right? You have like the heart of a knight, right? And stuff like that. And I could probably see myself like connecting with that, like. And whether or not that's true, like whether or not I have the heart of a knight, I want to, right? Essentially, because the book said it, right, and it's cool, right? That is actually something worthy of aspiring to, I think. So whether or not knights are super great in a lot of ways, right? I mean, with non-state violence in our current state of existence where violence is monopolized by the state, and the knights are not part of that. But anyways, still courageous. So
that's what 9-year-old Liam was thinking about.
Yeah, that's definitely what I was thinking about. Monopolize state violence. No,
But you're right. And in fact, I think that's like a super nice thing about that. And I don't think it's just young boys, but young girls or whatever need stuff that like is impactful to them. It might be like parents always try to get something to be impactful to their kids, and not everything sticks, of course. But you of your own volition decided to read this book, even if it was a gift. And you got something out of it that impacted you, and perhaps is still impacting you. And I think that's worthwhile. I mean, just like when I read Huck Finn, like I thought I connected to it so much because I'm like, oh, he's just a Midwestern boy like me or whatever, And I mean, obviously, drastically different. But I got something out of it that impacted me, and I still love the story of Huck Finn. And like just stories like that, it's pretty much just hero's journey, just down a river.
Yeah,
which is so cool. But yeah, that's fair. I enjoyed reading the book. I appreciate you recommending it. I mean, it was quick, which is which was nice and faster read than the other one I did as
Yeah,
well. So
it's probably about like what 170 pages or something.
yeah, let's see. I think it was like 180, pretty much. Oh,
Yeah, not a
179.
lot.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Ooh, okay, you went over, so I win. No,
Uh,
so yeah, and not a lot of words per page, so rather swift read, honestly. Like that's really not hard by any means. I mean, I read it when I was 9, so obviously it's not difficult. So. But
Fair
I
enough.
was surprised how much it held up. I still really enjoy it reading it. I remember I finished it and I told you, I was like, wow, I had good taste, just like I do now, essentially.
Yeah.
Right? It's just like, and yeah, so it was good to read it. Thanks for asking me to be on, because I probably wouldn't have reread it at least anytime soon if you hadn't. So yeah, I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, of course. Thank you for coming on, Liam. And the video will end with just spoilers. Don't have this prepared yet, of course, but Liam will read the little letter he prepared for just pretty much why he picked the story, why he thinks the story worth reading, and I will close with a poem that I wrote with Liam and the story in mind as well.
Sometimes when faced with a difficult problem, you make the wrong decision. That decision needs to be righted before you can progress. Thus is the story of The Castle in the Attic, a story of a youth facing the impending loss of a loved one. While simply done, this story of magic and adventure instilled a love for fantasy and the medieval in me almost 20 years ago. And it is not simple fun, rather, but a story improved by knowledge of the past and depth of inspiration, useful for any young reader. This is why it is the earliest novel that I have read, which I can still remember and name.
Up the stairs and downstream, knights fight, and lamps gleam. Austere facade stands supreme, turrets laid without a seam. Within the walls lay unseen swords, bows, arrows, slings. Greater still, a brand new team, adventure with a silver sheen. To solidify our favorite theme, dragons, magic, and fantastic things.
But I will now put it on the shelf, though. Okay, watch this.
Watch this. I said, I'm glad you're wearing pants.
Yeah, me too.